The thing about longer hair is that they don't tell you how much conditioner you're supposed to use. Hey, I'm Aaron, and I make things. So over the last couple weeks, I actually didn't do anything. So maybe the show should be called Aaron Makes Nothing. The last couple weeks have been pretty stressful in terms of anxiety and stress. It was the elections, and then we also had the end of quarter one grade due, and that was not fun. I am very excited about this episode today. I have a awesome conversation that I had with an old friend of mine from LA. We met here at work, and now she's a lawyer. In addition to that, I definitely want to share a couple examples from my students. I'll do that first. The example that I'm going to show you is from a video project that I assigned my seniors. Video is very tricky to try to do over remote learning because not everyone has editing or a phone, and I can't really expect them all to have one. And so it's kind of a tricky rope that I'm trying to balance on. From some of the results that I've gotten back, I'm pretty much amazed, and I think I'm making little mini me's out there by having them interview other people in their homes too. So that's kind of cool. I have also now switched from Photopea to Pixlr. Way more accessible. Photopea was crashing my kids' windows, and if they had their Meet open at the same time, it was an impossible task for them to kind of do. I don't know, but I know Pixlr has helped out a lot more. I also want to make sure that I am very transparent, is that while I have been getting some really awesome work back, it does not mean that I'm getting 100% engagement or participation, kind of really in the low percentage actually. Probably getting about less than 15% participation every day, and probably less than that in engagement. Because of that, my classes tend to be very silent. Luckily, I play some music in the background, so that kind of helps out a little bit. I've asked them if this is how silent they are in other classes. They usually say, yep, the teacher just talks. I'm all ears if anyone has suggestions for engagement. I've tried Pear Deck a little bit. It was okay. Just wondering how it's going out there for anybody else. All right, well, I'm excited to show you all this very awesome short clip of two of my students interviewing each other. And I think a lot of it came out fantastic. They're not done editing, but I think that sharing this, I think, is a really fun idea.
Hi, my name is Monica Vega.
Is Alexia Hernandez, and we're going to be interviewing each other today.
For a year, I saw you walking in the Triangle hallway with Jose and was taking you to class.
My first memory of you was in digital media. I saw you, honestly, doing work, and I was with Jose, and I was like, oh, look at Monica. That's my first memory anyways that I remember, like, clearly.
No, I don't think there's ever been a time where I didn't like you. I was cautious of you junior year because all you had that year was just a resting face. I was like, maybe she's having a bad day, you know?
When I saw you, I was just like, I could be her up. But I didn't think, like, oh, I didn't like this person.
I don't know, I think we have a lot in common. You know, we're both very artistic. We watch a lot of the same YouTubers. We play a lot together, so...
Since we started talking to each other and we've been close, we play a lot of games. We help each other out when it comes to art stuff. So yeah. It's pretty much, it was a really good friendship once we started to talk to each other. It wasn't hard.
I would describe you as outgoing. You put yourself out there. At least that's what I get from, you know, like in class and in school or whatever. Like whenever you're being called on to present, you're not like, I don't know, all shy and introverted, which is the opposite of me.
I honestly thought that you were very quiet. I didn't think that you were going to be a very talkative person. But then once we started to getting to know each other, you started to talk more. And I was like, oh, there we go. There's Monica.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if we're still talking to each other, then we'll be friends. You know?
If we're still in 10 years, we'll probably be at the movies.
How I see it, like we're going right now, I don't think so. You know, we talk like legit almost every day or every other day. So I don't know. I don't see us losing touch with each other.
Yeah, me either. We talked a lot. Honestly, more than anyone that I've ever talked to besides Jose, I literally talk to you almost every day. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
if we're not on FaceTime, we're on Among Us. If we're not on Among Us, we're playing Fortnite over there. So
No, I don't think so. Only that you're sus.
you know what? I'm gonna leave that in there. It was Valentine's Day, and that's when Jose gave me a flower, and I was like, I really just wanted a flower from you. And I was like, I just really want a flower, so I can just put. I still have the flower. I have it. See, still have it.
Oh, that's so cute. My grandma going to the park. Something about that, I was like very happy.
I love doing the same thing, honestly. When I go to my other grandma's house, we like go places, and I'm just like, it's fun.
Yeah, and that's a wrap for this interview. Bye.
And just like that, I've made little mini me's. The last thing I'll leave you all with is this great conversation that I had with Dominique. I hope you all enjoyed it. The only last thing I have to say is LSC's stuff is coming up. Please go vote for your preferred elected teacher in your own schools if you're a teacher. I'll see you all hopefully next week.
Sure. So my name is Dominique Celeste Alcaraz. I am a born and raised Los Angelino, whatever that means. My family immigrated to LA in the early 70s. And so that part of my family has been in the city since then. And my other part of my family has been in LA, I think, for maybe a generation or two more. But I grew up in a place called City Terrace, which is nestled somewhere between, if people know LA, between Boyle Heights, East Los Angeles, and El Sereno. And pretty much that is where I spent the my entire life until we moved when I was in college. But I currently am a lawyer. I do civil rights law. I work for the state at the moment, and I currently still live in and around the same area, but I live in East Los Angeles, which is closer now to another area called Montebello.
Awesome. Cool. So actually that's one of the reasons why I was very excited to kind of like talk to you. One, because I know we know each other from what is it now, like 8-7 years ago?
Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long.
Actually, if you could maybe talk a little bit about, so we met in Chicago, we met at work at Schurz High School, and you were a City Year kid at the time.
Yes.
What is that? What is City Year, and what was Chicago for you, from especially coming from like LA?
Yeah, so City Year, the program, and there are some in Chicago, LA, a lot of other major cities across the nation. It's an AmeriCorps program, and essentially that program is an opportunity for folks to be in school, but not in a teacher role. So everybody pretty much knows about Teach for America, and that gives new grads an opportunity to teach, and oftentimes that happens to be in low-income schools. Which I could talk about a whole other day. But
episodes.
Yeah. But for City Year, your role is essentially you're a teacher's assistant. But the goals of City Year are to ensure that kids are on track to graduate. So there are certain categories of classes that if a kid is passing those classes, the likelihood that they will graduate high school is higher. But City Year doesn't just focus on academics, and that's really what drew me to the program, because we also focused on socio-emotional growth. And I know just personally as a kid who also grew up in a low-income community, we go through a lot when we're in school, and it's hard for teachers to deal with all of that, given they also have a lot of things to do, their own lives, and to teach, to meet certain benchmarks, which is why we need more counselors in school. But I really liked that about the program. I liked that it would be an opportunity to help somebody academically, but also help just kind of feel more comfortable at school, right? Feel safe to be there, feel eager to learn, because it's important for them, not just because somebody's telling them to do it. But I would say that I chose Chicago because I had never been there before. So I will say that before I went to college, I actually had never traveled outside of California. So when I went to college in Oregon, that was the first time I had ever been anywhere else, literally in my life. I had been to Sacramento, but that's in California. So when I was thinking about where to apply, I don't know, Chicago's always been this, interesting city. It's really cool. And I know that now from having been there. There's awesome people like you and everybody else that I sort of met. And my students also told me, Chicago is where it's at. But yeah, I think for me, it was wanting to see, I know that the things that I witnessed as a kid, or even now, about the things that happen in low-income communities or under-resourced schools are not just what happens to kids in under-resourced schools in Los Angeles, right? That's the same in every other city, albeit with their own characteristic differences. But that was kind of what drew me. I wanted to see what it was like in a different sort of atmosphere where things might still be the same, and what could I learn from that about education and what we need to change for the future.
Your time in Chicago, how has that influenced your decision to go into law, or is that something you already knew you were going to do?
So I kind of knew before I went to Chicago. I was still sort of deciding though. And for me, it was because I very much wanted to be on the ground with people. I wanted to be organizing because I really believe in people power. And it wasn't, being a lawyer wasn't something that I really knew anything about. I think the one time I heard it in my life was like my Nina once told me when I was younger that, you really like to help people. Maybe you should become a lawyer or a doctor. And the doctor seemed cool, but I'm not really into all of that, like blood and stuff. And so, there was just something that sort of had been in my mind, but not really, because I didn't know what it really meant to be a lawyer. But essentially my last year of college, one of my professors was like, yeah, I think that you would make a really good attorney. Have you thought about going to law school? And, I was really honest with her. I told her I literally don't know the first thing about applying to law school, about being a lawyer. And her husband is actually a lawyer. So she kind of hooked me up to talk with him and get to know a little bit more about the field. But I will say that I went to Chicago having this in mind, right? That I know that I wanted to make a difference in certain things. And one of those pieces is education. And so when I went to Chicago, like I said, it was to sort of see what the differences or similarities are in education in inner city schools. But through City Year, I got to see sort of the admin side or the teacher perspective versus being a student in an under-resourced school.
Yeah, absolutely. What does a day look like in your shoes?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's a little bit different than some other lawyers that you might think of, only because I work for government. And so I don't have clients that I directly represent. I represent the entire, people of the state of California. But my day-to-day pretty much is me at my computer for 8 hours or more. And, that can, when I'm on my computer, I am either doing research about the law, or I am doing research on facts about, a potential investigation that we might want to bring. It may be reading news articles, it may be reading cases. So decisions from the Supreme Court or from the state courts here in California. It also means that I'm on phone calls a lot, talking to other attorneys in my office. Sometimes that can be talking to people who may have some facts or insight into the things that we are considering looking into. But right now with the pandemic, we have not had as much of that type of interaction, which is the type of interaction that I enjoy the most. And so I miss not being able to do that. But essentially it's doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of meetings generally with folks in my office. My favorite days at work, and again, this isn't happening right now because of the pandemic, but my favorite days in my capacity as a government lawyer is being on site to whatever, agency or group of people that we're investigating and talking to folks. So that can be, for example, one of my projects has been working on conditions of confinement in immigration detention facilities. And that's been really difficult, heavy, but rewarding work. And my favorite parts about that work are interviewing folks who are detained and hearing from them specifically about their experiences and, you know, what they think about what is happening and what needs to change.
And so what do you do with that information when you collect those stories, and then are they written and stored and documented, or are they used in the court?
Yeah, so that would depend on sort of what the type of project is that we're doing. So specifically for the immigration detention facility work, the California legislature tasked the Attorney General with writing a report about what we find in the detention facilities. And so obviously ensuring that we are not overstepping any privacy concerns. We don't necessarily write people's names into the report or anything like that, but the interviews themselves are, we document them in order to report accurately. But yeah, depending on what the matter is, you could potentially use some of those interviews and the information that they've provided to you to help write up maybe like a complaint for you to file a lawsuit. It just kind of depends on what the goal of the investigation is.
Do you recommend this career path?
It's a tough one. I think that I definitely feel that people who are interested in making a difference should become lawyers, and people who never thought they wanted to be lawyers should maybe consider being lawyers. I personally think that this profession has a lot of growth that needs to come. And that's only going to happen with different types of people becoming lawyers. And I think, I have seen that personally in my work. I have seen that in law school. And so I think that it can be really hard work. Law school itself is a mission, and can really take you through some kind of experience. But, I know that, myself and so many other people are so willing to help give advice and guide people as they go into this profession, because we are the ones who think that these things need to change and it's going to come through us. So I do recommend it. I want to caution people to not think that it's going to be some luxurious lifestyle as you see on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, you've already hit like the top tier benchmark of like Latino parents, like lawyer, doctor, or what's another one?
An accountant? I don't know. I just think
Maybe.
those are useful to have.
I definitely know I disappointed my parents for the first 8 years. They still didn't know what I was doing, which is fine.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, sometimes I don't think that my mom totally understands what I do every day either. So, we're not that different.
Actually, speaking of your mom, you've mentioned on your social media that your mom is a postal worker, right?
Yes.
How long has she been a postal worker for?
I'm not good at math, so she probably started when I was 12 and I'm 29 now. So she's been a postal worker for a really long time. And, I hear a lot about how the post office employs, I think, the largest number of people of color, that being Black people, Latinos. And, I really think, like, when I look back on the trajectory of our life and our experience, the fact that she started working at the post office really changed our lives. I mean, just thinking about what she was not making before and what she made at the post office.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, my mom makes more money at the post office because she's always working overtime because that lady doesn't know how to relax. But it really, really made a difference in our life. And I think, I have so many other family members who also work for the post office now. And they too are very much like, this has really changed our lives.
Wow. How, anything you can share from like your mom's perspective with like this election and mail-in, and how many times did she vote, or how many ballots did she throw out?
Oh man, it's been a whirlwind. I think I was sharing with my mom that one day she had come home and told me that there were going to be all these changes and she wasn't sure why this was happening. And then a few days later, the internet, it was a storm of, this is what's happening in the post office. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is exactly what you just told me 2 days ago. But yeah, I think for her during the election, she was saddled with a lot of work. My mom wasn't getting home before 10 p.m. on any day. And that, especially after the the change in time when it gets darker earlier was concerning for me, because I'm like, there are people out here who do want to steal mail, and you're in the dark walking in the street. But no, she loves her job, and her favorite part is talking to everybody that she sees in her neighborhood every day.
That's great.
Yeah, but definitely it was a lot of work. I think she and one of my other family members mentioned how so much was backlogged. I mean, they had literally huge machines full of ballots at times that had not been sent back yet. And so it was real what was happening. What you heard on the internet was legit.
Yeah. That's insane, because I mean, I definitely don't have a good relationship with my mail U.S. Postal Service lady. I tried to pick up the mail, and one time she just knocked and she like, take your mail out of the box, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, that's never happened to me before. And she was
it just that it was because it was so full?
It was so full.
See, then she can't leave her mail, and then that's her job. If she can't leave it, what is she gonna do?
Every day now after that, like, I see her, but she like never acknowledges that I exist. She just definitely hates me.
I'm sure she doesn't hate you. She might just be stressed.
Yeah, and that too, definitely. Well, thankfully, because of our mail-in system, our legit mail-in system,
yes,
we finally got fucking rid of Trump, or at least he's still there. He's slowly understanding a reality. How did you celebrate Trump losing?
Well, I definitely popped a bottle of champagne open at 8:30 a.m. whenever the news came out. And, just enjoyed watching the TV. But, as I think a lot of people also say this about lawyers, that we can sometimes be very pessimistic, or we're like the Eeyores of the group. Yes. So I was definitely like, I want to wait until Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia solidify their results before I totally celebrate. But when I saw that Fox News were supporting that Donald Trump had lost, I was like, all right, this is legit. We're going to celebrate. They're not denying it, so we're not denying it. Yeah, so I definitely drank some champagne. I probably cried a little as well, out of joy, but also out of like 4 years of, I can finally breathe just a little bit better. And afterward, before the speeches by Biden and Kamala Harris, my partner and I did a 2-person parade in the neighborhood. And so, like I said, I live in East LA, but my partner lives in Riverside, and Riverside County is notorious for being more conservative. And definitely there are, or have been, I think they took them down since, there are homes here with very large Trump 2020 flags.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. I know there are probably 1 or 2 in East LA too, but I know for a fact, and I will say, like, for example, I once chalked Black Lives Matter on all of the, where the, what do you call them, mailboxes are, because they're all in one place. And I actually had people come out, I didn't see them, but when I went back to see if my chalk was still there, everything minus the black was there, because somebody decided that they could come out and put dirt on the black part so that I'm not talking about Black Lives Matter. So I made it a point on that day to parade around this neighborhood in joy of Donald Trump. And we definitely walked by those homes, obviously blasting YG's FDT, because that's the most accurate song of the day, as well as a few others like Te Boté and I don't want to say this. Can I say it? Anyway, F You by Lily Allen.
You can say anything.
Yeah, I was like, are they going to censor me? Well, anyway, the song is called Fuck You by Lily Allen.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, I definitely, Biden has never been my preferred choice. I mean, but seeing him and Kamala do her speech, I think Kamala's speech was way more effective for me personally. I definitely teared up a little bit. I could totally tell Caitlin was crying. How was that? Like seeing a woman of color be a vice president?
Yeah. In some ways, I think I almost was like, is this real life? And I will say, Biden also is not my preferred candidate. I obviously would have preferred for Bernie Sanders to be our president-elect, but it's all good. We got Trump out of office. And I will say that I also, and maybe you may not know this, but Kamala Harris actually used to be the Attorney General in California before she was a senator. So, you know, that in and of itself is like a connection, even more than just also her being the first woman of color vice president elect. I think seeing her give that speech and hearing her give praise to Black women and to Black people in this country for what they have done for all of us, I was just floored. Like, you know, I majored in rhetoric and media studies in college. So we dissected a lot of speeches. And I never imagined that those classes are now going to dissect her speech. A Black Indian American woman, vice president elect, speaking about, like, just so forthrightly about what is happening in this country, and saying that they are committed to changing systemic racism. Like, I've never heard any candidate ever on that level say anything like that. And obviously we have to hold them accountable to those things, but hearing it, you know, on that night felt incredible. And I even, although Kamala isn't necessarily my favorite person either, seeing her there was just in some ways magical. And I think every time they panned the screen to the audience and I would see, you know, young girls, or when her nieces came on stage with their cute puffs in their hair, I was like, this really is, it feels like a new day in this country, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was just able to breathe normally without like, I don't know, there was definitely something the night or the morning afterwards where I woke up and I just like thought, I don't even have to check my phone.
Right?
Like, I don't care. Not that I don't care. It was like, I don't know. I felt like the last 4 years, I don't know, maybe you felt this way, but I feel like I've been rushed. I'm always, I just been like rushed. Like I'm either late to something or I missed it. And like that feeling went away that morning where I was like, I got nowhere to go. I'm just going to be home and enjoy home. So it was nice. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think I slept the best I've slept in 4 years that night. And the next morning it was, definitely a feeling of the world is still burning, but nothing new is happening. And that's great, because we're going to fix this. We're going to get back. We're going to not get back, because we're going to go to a new place, a better place. But I definitely felt that same way of just, wow, I could just sit here, enjoy my coffee this morning and not think about like all the millions of things in the world that I need to do.
What are your thoughts on Mandalorian?
Well, we have 3 episodes now of the new season. I mean, I love the show is very interesting. I think the second season, even though I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, I was expecting a little bit more as far as finding out more about the story. And I feel like the first 2 episodes of this new season didn't totally give us much. I would say the 3rd episode, I think that's the one that just came out this Friday, illuminated a little bit more for us. And I was happy to see that. But I'm also confused because the first episode was 50 minutes, the second one was 46 minutes, and this one was 30 something minutes. I was like, what are we doing?
I've been having this argument with a lot of my friends too. I've come to the conclusion that this is like the 76ers. Trust the process. Trust the process. It's a process. After this, we're gonna get more amazing Star Wars stuff. So just
probably
keep looking at that baby Yoda, the child. He's very adorable.
Except when he's eating other people's potentially babies.
Baby's gotta eat.
I know, he's a growing boy. I forgive him.
Awesome. Anything? Any last thoughts? Any last ideas, or what are some things that you're looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to just generally see where we go, how people are going to be engaged, how much we can push. And I know you had asked me before of, how did I sort of get involved in politics, or why, how that was for me. And I think that for me, it wasn't anything specific, or I don't think I have a specific time that happened. I think that many of us, I mean, obviously our lives are always touched by what's happening in politics. And sometimes we forget, because this is just the world we live in, right? It's like when you take a fish out of water, you can't ask, or when a fish is in water, you can't be like, hey, what's that feel like? Because it's just, that's life. So I think we all are touched by the things that are happening in politics, and we forget that. And it's important, especially right now, to not, right, to take a moment to think about how is what is happening in politics, both at the federal, state, and local level, affecting me? How is it affecting the ability that I have to accomplish whatever thing it is that I want to? How have those things affected my family, my life, like literally every day? And I think for me, sort of witnessing a lot of that growing up, especially, you know, when a lot of the things around immigration sort of started heating up in the early 2000s, you know, my family was very much like, we're going to the protest, and we went as a family, and that really changed sort of my investment in things. And I would say that, you know, there are many ways for people to get involved. That can be protesting, that can be going to public meetings for the Board of Supervisors or the city councils that represent where you live. That can be talking to other people just generally about these things. I think even reading, finding out, sometimes, you know, I say this also about education, is we're not necessarily always taught the truth, the reality of the way things were or are, and how those things have affected our lives. And so doing a little bit of research, reading something, the moment that you find out that one thing that you're like, that doesn't seem right, it will change how you feel about your investment in politics. And I'm not someone who knows everything about politics either. I never purport to be that. I'm just someone who thinks that it's important for everybody to be engaged, because it really does affect your life every single day. No matter what you think, no matter if you think, oh, I am not, you know, affected by government, you are. Everything about your life is. And so I think that, you know, I just encourage everybody to get engaged in some way, even if that means you're yelling on Twitter the way that I do sometimes. You know, that's, you know, one step. I think there are many ways, and people should definitely think about what can be a simple and easy way for them to be involved in the next coming, you know, months and years as we go into this new presidency. And specifically, I want to say to young people, because young people are so important as far as where we go from here. And already I see the younger generation being just so much more badass than I feel like I ever was or am. As far as involvement, it's so important for you to be involved. And I think that as a kid, you often feel frustrated, right? Because you don't have necessarily the agency to just do whatever you want because your parents or whoever are telling you what you need to do. But you are also a human being who is capable of learning and teaching, and you can teach other people a lot, even if they're older than you. But if you feel frustrated about things that you're experiencing, take a moment to try to learn something and figure it out, because it might be that whatever is frustrating you is something that you have the power to change by just getting involved. So that's sort of the advice I give people. I think everybody needs to do something.
That's perfect. Yeah, I don't know what else I could add. That's well said. And yes, the younger kids are way more badass than us.
I agree.
Well, thank you, Dominique. I really, really appreciate your time, and I'm so happy to have seen you again.
Yeah, it was nice to talk. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.